True or false? Plants are trying to kill you.
I'd say false, because if that's the case, they're doing a pretty bad job.
Did I do a good impersonation?
I'd say pretty good. Mind you, I haven't listened to quite as much of the content as you have, so maybe it's not burned into my memory as well. But yeah, I mean, obviously you're talking about Anthony Chaffee. I think that's how you pronounce his name. And his view on polyphenols and phytochemicals trying to kill us. And a lot of that stems from this paper by Bruce Ames. This was a paper from 1990, and in that paper, they determined that it's in the title of the paper, 99.99% of the pesticides that we're exposed to, these things that are meant to, kill insects and pests, are naturally found in the foods that we eat, largely in plant foods. And now his conclusion, Chaffee's conclusion from that is that, these plants are trying to kill us because they're full of all these, natural chemicals like the polyphenols and whatnot. But there are, several issues with that. For starters, in that paper, they explicitly say that fruits and vegetables are healthy. They say that they're consistently associated with great health outcomes. And their ultimate conclusion, in fact, this is right in the abstract of that paper, is that because most of our exposure to these potential pesticide-like compounds are naturally in foods that are actually healthy for us, then the synthetic pesticides that make up this tiny fraction of what we're exposed to probably aren't a problem. So it's actually arguing that these chemicals broadly are probably not an issue for us, yet it gets spun into this concern around those chemicals that are naturally found being toxic or harming us. And there are so many issues with that sort of conclusion, because that's largely based on like cell culture studies or rodent studies, or again, looking at the impact on insects, which is essentially what they're
and
trying
also
to protect against.
where the exposure on a milligram per
Is
kilogram
very
basis
high.
is not something that humans would be exposed to through diet.
Yeah, exactly. We would not be consuming anywhere near that amount. And again, the foods are health promoting. But what's really interesting is that polyphenol consumption, whether it's from things like coffee, tea, fruits, vegetables, is very consistently associated with great health outcomes, lower risk of cardiovascular disease, lower risk of total mortality. This is what we need to look at, the actual health outcomes in humans. And in fact, there's some really, really strong data on a particular metabolite of a polyphenol called enterolactone. So this is a breakdown product of lignans, which are found in flax seeds, being one of the major sources of that. And the reason it's such a good marker is that we don't make it. The only reason it's in your body is because you ate it or you consumed something that was broken down into it. And highest consumption in this meta-analysis of studies looking at levels found that there was a 30% lower risk of all-cause mortality and a 45% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality when comparing high levels to low levels. That's crazy. And again, the only reason that's there is because you ate these foods, not because you're genetically producing more or something, because we don't produce it.
Higher polyphenol intakes also being consistently associated with lower risk of Alzheimer's, dementia as well.
Yeah, and there's some really cool studies on like berry consumption, whatnot, improving some markers of cognitive function.
Even clinical trials.
Yeah, exactly. Not necessarily as it relates to Alzheimer's, but even just
acute.
In the short term.
Yeah, I printed out that paper because I thought it would come up, and just to kind of emphasize what you said, here's a direct quote from the Ames paper. Yeah. Caution is necessary in interpreting the implications of the occurrence in the diet of natural pesticides that are rodent carcinogens. It is not argued here that these dietary exposures are necessarily of much relevance to human cancer. Indeed, a diet rich in fruit and vegetables is associated with lower cancer rates.
Has that ever been quoted?
That was conveniently left out, as was, I will say, and the reason I said plants are trying to kill you in that kind of fashion, I certainly wasn't mocking Anthony Chaffee. It's a video that's gone viral. It's titled "Plants Are Trying to Kill You," and it has, I think, 500 or 550,000 views by this stage. And something else within that, so Dr. Chaffee cites the Ames paper and leaves out that critical information that we just went over, which is the dose, how much are you exposed to through diet, and also what the main takeaway from the paper was. And he also cited the World Health Organization's website where they talk about natural plant toxins. And he used this as evidence to say, see, even the World Health Organization are aware of this. But he left out again a very important paragraph from that page that he shared that says, in a usual balanced diet, the levels of natural toxins are well below the threshold for acute and chronic toxicity, which I think is important.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, all of the fact that these points are being left out, but he's aware of these papers is also like questionable as far as like, is he just, purposely leaving this stuff out or what's, I don't know. It's upsetting, to think about it that way.
Yeah, it seems like he's had an anecdotal experience and seen other anecdotal experiences. Maybe you can comment on this, why someone who adopts he only eats meat and water, but why someone who adopts a diet like that might experience some benefits. To me, it seems like he's trying to attribute that to the removal of toxins, but there could be many other reasons. Is that something that you've thought about?
Yeah. So he's like, when you're removing basically everything, from your diet except the meat, and certainly you're removing ultra processed foods if you were having any, it's kind of expected that if something was bothering you and you remove it, you might feel better as far as your gut function. Maybe you had some like IBS-like symptoms and you remove some foods that you're having problems digesting. That could be something. If you're eating a really heavily, processed food, it's possible that, the meat's going to be a lot more nutritious than probably some of that stuff too. Maybe you were running into issues that way. I don't know what his history was in particular, but there are plausible explanations for why someone might feel better in the short term. At the same time, that doesn't mean it's going to be great in the long term. And I think that's where there's an issue. We can look at a lot of things, smoking being one, where people can actually feel better in the short term. It might calm their nerves. It can help with weight loss. It can do all of these things that in another context might be viewed as good, but we know based on all the data, epidemiological or observational data, I should clarify, that smoking, leads to high risk of lung cancer, total mortality, cardiovascular disease, et cetera. So I think we're focusing too much on these short-term changes, which it's great that somebody has improved in that way, but while forgetting about or trying to make excuses for why it won't be a problem in the long term.
Right. And also overlooking that there are protocols that have been tested to help someone who perhaps does have food intolerances settle symptoms, and then through a sort of reintroduction and challenging protocol, establish which ones are causing some issues that they're intolerant to, which ones are not, and then reintroducing foods they can tolerate to increase compounds like fiber that we know are associated with good long-term health.
Yeah, absolutely. There's obviously like low FODMAP diet. There's all sorts of other elimination diets that have been more well characterized, and someone can work with a professional to walk them through that.
The other thing that I always think about with this idea that plants are trying to kill us is that, and in that video, Dr. Chafee goes on to sort of insinuate that he thinks the cardiometabolic conditions like type 2 diabetes and obesity, etc., are being caused by these compounds in foods like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. And he names those foods and others. Going back to our alternative hypotheses, I think there's much stronger hypotheses that exist to explain why there are so many cardiometabolic conditions. But just on the notion that you can blame these foods for type 2 diabetes and obesity seems ludicrous, given the actual average intake of these foods across population is negligible.
Yeah. And when you think about, especially naming some of those diseases like type 2 diabetes, where it's like, in the US, again, I'm Canadian, but I think in the US, it's coming up to half of the population has diabetes or type 2 diabetes or prediabetes or something in that ballpark at this point. Are half of them overeating broccoli and Brussels sprouts and, those types of foods? I don't think so. I think it's much more plausible that they're eating the McDonald's and the, that sort of stuff.